afternoon, fellow school counsellors and teachers of Blueberry High. Look, as you're all well aware, there's been another monthly mental health newsletter sent out across the school to all of the teachers and counsellors of the Berry region. You will notice though that this issue highlights depression and suicide amongst adolescents particularly. It is quite with a heavy heart that I do focus on this issue. It does mark the 1 year anniversary of the passing of the late Stacey Andrews, who was sadly not only the third young student to take her life in our school, but as you all know, she's also one of 2,918 people to have committed suicide in the year 2017. That's according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. We also know that this is very common in Northern Territory and Tasmania amongst different cultural groups such as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, which I'll be touching on further throughout this presentation. Okay, so most monthly issues we just have the newsletter, but this month I want to bring special attention to this issue as it is a very serious and concerning issue, and I want to be able to make sure that we as counsellors, therapists and teachers of the school, we address it as appropriately and effectively as possible. So the presentation will be on understanding suicide and depression. It's a mental health analysis of major depression, mood disorders and suicide amongst adolescents. Okay, so the contents of this presentation, will start off with the definition and underlying outline, of suicide and depression. We'll be also looking at some statistics, crossing over culturally, and focusing once again on adolescence. Then part B, we'll be looking at why it is important we learn to appropriately respond to this issue. As you look at this picture, I think another thing to understand is that whilst our students, they may seem positive sometimes, whilst you and I, we might seem positive and happy sometimes, there are sometimes underlying issues that we may or may not know about, and we do need to be very cautious. If we hear people joking even about suicide, if we even just see anyone, we should be able to respect the fact that we don't know what they're going through in their personal life. Part D, we will be looking at different support services that are available, such as Lifeline and Beyond Blue. And not only that, but I want to remind you all that you can always visit myself. You know where my office is. My door is always open, and I'm always more than willing to talk. Okay, so starting off with part A, definition and statistics. We'll first look at the outline and overview of major depression, mood disorders and suicide. Obviously the main focus is the major depression there that can subsequently lead to suicide. Then definition with a cultural consideration, and another definition there with depression and suicide in our young people. Okay, so there are a number of different mood disorders such as major depression, melancholia, psychotic depression, antenatal and postnatal depression, clicothymic disorder, dysthemic disorder and seasonal affective disorder. I do also apologise for my pronunciations, they're not always accurate. But look, first off, looking with major depression, we need to understand that depression is more than just a low mood, but it is a serious condition, and it can affect individuals on a social, mental and physical level. It can cause people to withdraw from situations. You might find some of our students, they may start off as, outgoing, wanting to play sport and everything, and then all of a sudden they might be shutting down. Yes, obviously they are in adolescence, they are developing, so it is natural for them to also perhaps not want to take part in some things, or it is natural for all of us to get a bit anxious around different sort of things, but there is a difference between simply feeling anxious, and actually having a mood disorder, we do need to be able to pay attention to our students, of course. And this can be done by remembering also that there are a number of contributing factors towards suicide. It's not just mental disorders. It can be through vicarious trauma, which is something that we as counsellors and teachers need to be aware of. It can be with friends who have been working alongside or supporting the person who's gone through depression, or even the person who's committing or who has committed suicide. It's through knowing of people that have passed away recently. It's a collapse of homeostasis, or in fact any solid relationship, be that family, loved one, or a job, or even career. Of course, for our students, that might be a bit more of a breakdown in their studies, difficult marks, changes in even changes both at home life. Their parents one might lose a job. That's endless sort of different events can happen that can trigger suicidal thoughts or even behaviours and suicidal ideation. Look, there is an intense level of emotional pain that is being experienced by the individual that may cause them to see suicide even as a means of escape. I did just touch on the causes, sorry, but yes, as I said, causes of depression may include suicidal ideation, life events, personal factors, family history, personality. Personality was actually another one I didn't quite touch on yet. That you'll find the difference between nature and nurture. Of course, there's the flight and fight, as referenced by Covey, where you'll have some individuals who come up across different tasks, and some will fight as soon as something major happens, and others will flight or flee away from it. Some people may be drawn towards feeling depressed from different events than other people. Simply enough, we are all uniquely and wonderfully made, as does the Bible put it. Alright, cultural consideration. Before I discuss cultural consideration, I do also want to touch on warning signs of depression. It is in the newsletter you'll find on page 2. I just want to point out, though, that we may not be able to fully understand what someone else is going through, but it is very important for us to be able to recognise the different warning signs in our students. According to Beyond Blue, there are a number of factors to look out for, such as significant changes in behaviour. I do highlight the word significant there. As mentioned before, adolescents especially, or all of us, we do go through different changes in our behaviours, particularly after life events. But the key word there is significant. If you significantly notice someone who's withdrawing from their life, and you don't know, they might even be self-harming or joking about suicide. They might be finding themselves to be a bit of a burden, often anxious and unable to sleep. You'll notice a change in behaviour. These sort of things are definite warning signs, as referenced referenced by Beyond Blue, as you'll find in the newsletter. So, next step is cultural consideration, where especially up here in the Northern Territory, we do need to be aware of our neighbours, the different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, especially since we have had quite a high level of suicides in our Aboriginal community, which is very distressing and sad. So just according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, reference 2019, between the years 2012 and 2017, suicide rates were actually the highest in Northern Territory and Tasmania, with the suicide rate for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups twice as high as non-Indigenous people. I'll just let that sink in for a second. It's twice as high. So literally double the amount. And look, we also need to keep into consideration that the culture doesn't exactly define who an individual is, of course, because people from many different cultural backgrounds may develop different mental illnesses. The cultural background does not change the mental illness a person is likely to experience. However, the cultural background may affect how different people experience, understand, and interpret the different symptoms of mental health. It's important for us when we see someone of any different culture that we find time to not try and fix the problem or change the issue, but we find time to subtly remind the individuals that they're not alone in what they're going through. Depression and suicide in our young people. Okay, so in the newsletter you'll notice that I discussed about the differences between mild, moderate and high depression. Okay, so depression and suicide in young people. I apologise, I think I had a little bit of an issue there with my recording. I'm just going to be, or you will notice in the newsletter that I touched on the differences between mild, moderate and major depression, severe depression. We also touched earlier about how different adolescents might be withdrawing from their otherwise regular social groups or activities. This might only just start off in the mild sort of category. However, you'll find also though with severe depression or major depression, the individual might even end up withdrawing completely from social interaction, or even wagging or skipping school or skipping classes. Not skipping for the sake of or not wanting to learn or not wanting to partake in social groups, but it's simply because of the anxiety and the depression, because they might feel like they don't want to, or they don't belong, or they're a burden to other people. So again, that's something we could and should look out for, especially since, as you can see there in the slide, depression is most common during adolescence, with over 20% of adolescent people affecting some sort of depression. So yeah, once a student has severe depression, it will be very clear in their refusal to do day-to-day activities that they otherwise would have been eager for. I did talk about earlier how some individuals may be wanting to withdraw slightly, and once someone's at a point of not even wanting to partake at all in anything, it's clear that there is something going on, and we as counsellors need to remember not to intrude, but simply be there to talk and listen, both to the students and even families as well. Here's a little bit more of information. I did put down a note here that this is why we need to be careful and alert even at jokes. So you'll notice in the mild depression area where things just starting out, it might not be major yet, they might not be completely skipping class or anything like that, but they are joking about how life would be better off without them, or those sort of little subtle jokes that are a way of avoiding what is actually going on. Why it is important we learn to appropriately respond, part B. So this part I'll be touching on the importance of understanding, working with depression, and the importance of suicidal awareness. Okay. Okay, so the way I see the importance of learning how to respond to depression and suicide is sort of threefold in a way. First off, there is, of course, the need and concern of vicarious trauma. I do understand that it is a role and an area where we do want to be able to help other people, but I want to reassure staff that they can approach me if need, or if more comfortable, one of my colleagues, because dealing with this sort of issue can cause trauma within ourselves as well. The second thing is that we need to, when learning, or the reason we need to learn to respond to depression and suicide, the second reason is that a majority of students who consider suicide feel as if they are not alone. Feel as though they are alone. We need to be able to show the students and those suffering with depression that they are not alone and that we are there to support. It also leads to providing a means of recovery and support. That's what we are, or what we hope to be, in our role as counsellors. So just here's a little bit of information regarding vicarious trauma. One of the concerns regarding suicide and depression can in fact be those working with the client struggling. Vicarious trauma is the trauma a therapist may at times end up experiencing due to learning about and going through the client's experience. So of course, empathy being a huge important role that we attribute that we need to have as counsellors. We also need to be careful to take time to love and respect ourselves as well as other people. Take time away from your desk, take time to walk, and take time to debrief with colleagues. Working with depression. Now this is a very important thing, that we remember to meet the students where they are, recognize if they are feeling depressed, and then work with the student to not dramatically change their life or anything like that, but to work towards things one step at a time. This can be done through things like solution focused therapy or strategic therapy, where we simply focus on, or we do the miracle question. We look at a bigger goal or a bigger target for the client to achieve and to overcome. But with person-centered therapy, we focus on the little steps, the baby steps that will get them to the end. So, for instance, if they're not wanting to join in on a larger social group like a soccer team, we say, okay, I see, you might be a bit nervous to join in on that soccer team. And then we can talk about them about the team and the friends on there, and we might discover that they might get along with Brad on the team, or one person on the team. We can suggest different activities they can do with Brad, and then some separate coaching they can do with this Brad. And then eventually, hopefully the student will be able to, gain more friends and start to get a bit more involved, and next thing you know, they might be feeling more comfortable and a bit more positive. Here's just another link of SBS. Suicide is the leading cause of death for 15 to 44-year-olds, so of course it is a very high concern and issue in the adolescents that are under the age of 21 that we deal with, although adolescents are here is actually from under 25 nowadays, but we are mainly discussing our school students. Interventions and their effectiveness, part C. These are the sections I'm going to be going through. I do understand we're a little bit short for time, so I'll try and not talk too much. The role of interventions. Suicide intervention is not only about intervening between a client and suicide, but about showing empathy and reminding the client that they are not alone. I love Lifeline. That came off their website. They do a lot of great things for the community, and there is a video at the end that I'm going to be showing as well that highlights that. Why interventions are important for the client. The intervention may be a way of retaining hope and re-engaging into day-to-day life. So of course interventions are there not just to try and dramatically stop what is going on or stop the bad mood, but it is there simply to show the client that we care and we support, and we're there to try and recognize the fact that what they're going through is difficult, but there is a means of recovery as well. Okay, so how interventions are implemented. You can look at the newsletter I've handed out, but also suicide interventions require empathy. That is the main largest thing I think I've touched on a few times in this presentation. We're not there to fix it, we're there to recognize the emotion the other person is going through and communicate it back to them so that they can try and heal, not just by themselves but with us. We don't do the healing for them, we do it with them. Okay, so look, that is the end of my presentation. I do have a 2-minute video here if you would like to watch, otherwise you can end the presentation now because I do understand we're at about 19 minutes. I will press play though for those who wish to watch. Thank you. And that's something very important for us to remember with our clients. Sorry, the music I didn't remember. But look, that that is something very important to remember with our, not just clients, but our students, that we're not there to fix the issues. We're there to support them through what they're going through, particularly with depression and suicide or suicidal ideation. We don't want the students to ever feel as if they're alone, or we're just here to put band-aids on things. Any more questions, feel free to ask me. Most of the information is in there in the newsletter. References are at the back. There should be some statistics in there to look at. Thank you very much for your time.